This is Duke University.
Thank you, Dick, and congratulations, class of 2015. I mean, that's some cheap thrills. I learned a long time ago that's how you get applause. Just talk about you guys. When about almost a year ago, Dick Broadhead sent me an email asking me to call him, I am a professor, although you neglected to mention that, Dick. I do have a paying job. But that just means I'm going to use air quotes a lot. Don't worry, this will be over in an hour. He sent me an email asking him to call him about a confidential matter of great importance. I assumed that I was in some sort of trouble. How had I failed Broadhead, the gentle and avuncular humanist, the Pope Francis of university presidents? My hypothesis, I had been voted off the island as a trustee because of absenteeism. In my defense, which I began practicing as ardently as a former U.S. president who graduated from our law school, where are you, law students and faculty? Don't sue me. In my defense, I had joined the board just after a series of hurricanes struck Haiti and shortly before an earthquake leveled much of its capital, including the nation's chief nursing school and many of its hospitals and clinics. Then came cholera. As a doctor with 25 years experience in Haiti, I thought it important that I be there. The other trustees, including my pals now finishing from 12 to 17 years of service on the board, were unambivalently on my side, as was David, our chairman. But Broadhead's subtext seemed to be, after all Duke has done for you, what have you done for Duke? That was supposed to be funny. You know, how come it starts raining when I get up? My goddaughter, the youngest of my best friend from Wanamaker back in the day when fresh persons trod its halls. Are you cheering for Wanamaker? My goddaughter fanned my anxiety. Quite the acerbic critic during her high school years, Hannah put it this way: Paul, can you at least attend enough board meetings so that my connection to you won't be held against me when I apply? She has, I'm proud to say, just finished her sophomore year here, so don't have to worry about her. But then there's my own daughter, already following my Sassmeister goddaughter's footsteps a couple of years behind in high school. What if I were to imperil our daughter's chances of coming here, or that of her little brother and sister? This was, part of me knew, crazy talk. So I turned to darker thoughts, much darker than AIDS or Ebola or drug-resistant tuberculosis. Did Pope Richard over there find out about some of my bad behavior here between 1978, when I left small-town Florida? It was practically my first airplane flight, and 1982, when I left for small-town Haiti. True, Broadhead wasn't here back then, but had he tapped my phone NSA style? Why did I sign up for Verizon on my BlackBerry? Is that engineering laughter over there? Or perhaps a faculty member from back in the day. I knew it wasn't the rumpled and gentle classicist Peter Burian. Where is he? He would never not be here. Thank you, Peter. I knew it wasn't you. Nor could it be my biochemistry professor, Barbara Shaw. No hard-nosed tyrant, she. How about Dean Sue? Another way to get a cheap cheer at Duke. Just say Dean Sue. Dean Sue, Dean Sue, Dean Sue. Victor Zhao, my chief of medicine at Harvard and a mentor, was Duke's chancellor for Health Affairs at the time of Broadhead's thinly veiled threats. But tough exterior aside, Dr. Zhao wouldn't hurt a fly. It's those gentle humanists you got to worry about, especially those who remember a thing or two about history. And Duke had always been, even in my day, a tech-friendly school. We probably invented those drones. I tried hard to think about my MFR, my misdemeanor to felony ratio, from 1978 on. I did end up in prison, for years in fact, and in many prisons. You think about that. I'll come back to it in about an hour. Yes, I had an MFR, and it was not as low as I'd like to think my daughters or goddaughters are and will be forever and ever, world without end. Amen. There's no point in denying it, since a couple of my fraternity brothers are here in the audience, with children graduated today from Hogwarts South. By the way, guys, where are you? It says Miller Lite Party Deck over there. Thank you. Other friends are now faculty or work in senior level administrative positions at Duke. Let me warn the Kappa Sigs lest they think to share my MFR with my daughter, now a high school senior. I calculated your MFRs too. Conspiracy theories picked up speed along with my pulse. When my prompt response, I called Broadhead, like 2 seconds later, led to more anxiety. His assistant, who I knew well, refused to tell me a thing. "Oh, I'm not at all sure what this is about," she said darkly, suggesting I call him at home that night. It had to be that I was the worst trustee in Duke's history, reaching back into the 19th century before the Bassett Affair. I wondered if anyone would laugh at that, and the answer is no, only a trustee, one. This generation doesn't do history. I wondered as I dialed Broadhead's home, what if Cindy picks up? Has anyone ever been fired from the Duke board? What will Victor Zhao say? Now, I said none of this to our dear Dumbledore Gandalf when he and not his wife picked up the phone and asked if I'd give the 2015 commencement speech. "Hell yeah," I almost said. "Been hoping you've been asked that before Coach K came to dominate." Yo. Done did Yale and Harvard frickin' medical school 10 years back. Instead, with faux gravitas to mix unnecessarily highbrow but Broadheadian terms, I replied, "Thank you, Dick. It would be my great honor to do so." Every good commencement speech has to have, as medical students whine. Where are the medical students? They said meekly. That's like peeping like a chick. The students whine all the time. They need a clear take-home message. Have you already started doing that here? Where are howdy to Eric Nelson and Giannis Koulias. Where are you guys? Soon to join us as interns at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. You'll love it there. Unlike Duke University Medical Center, we don't haze the young at Harvard's teaching hospitals. The med school curriculum is more rigid than the colleges, as I learned when I switched my major from biochemistry to anthropology during my senior year. Oops. So where are you chem majors and grad students in general? There you go. That's supposed to be more than half of you. Peep a little bit louder than the med students, please. Barbara Shaw is a goddess. Is Barbara Shaw here? All right, you tell her I said she was a goddess, okay? And tell her I said thank you for writing all those damn letters of recommendation. Anthro undergrads, PhDs. Duke faculty get over the culture wars yet? The 19th century ones? That was an informed joke and fell flat. Take-home messages must number 3, 7, or 9 and be grounded in narrative. I have only 3, And though I don't trust TED Talks any further than I could throw Jaleel Okafor, I would not have fried and sunburnt you if we were in Wallace Rose Bowl Wade PTSD Stadium. And if it had not been pouring when I rose to finish this speech, he who must not be read. By the way, great job, Andrew Craigie, and an inspiring message. As we write under hospital notes written by interns, agree with above. Listen, Barbara Kingsolver talked through a pouring rainstorm, I'm told. I'm not about to stop. It took me forever to write this damn speech. My three messages will be of universal significance and have pragmatic application for each and every one of you and for your grandmas. Grandma got run over by a rainstorm. Now and forever. So here's my first shout out to mothers. Any moms out there? Anyone ever have a mother? Say, thank you, Mom. I'll put all three messages in basketball terms, which would astound my family, what with the PTSD and all. Let me explain. I'm so happy to not be in Wallace Wade Stadium. You'd think that after my career as one of Duke's greatest ever scholar athletes, displacing Frank Emery, class of '79 and BMOC. Sorry, Ross. Don't tell me he's like his father. BMOC, big man on campus. He is, I can tell. Anyway, you think I would want to talk. Where is Frank? You didn't laugh? You'd think I would want to talk in either Cameron or Wade Stadia. I was in 1981 the reason we did so well in the NCAA, having led in rebounds or jump shots or recovers or intercepts or some such, and having served admirably that same year as a linebacker on the football team, where I led in runbacks or field points or goals or whatever. And after practice, off I trudged along the imaginatively named Science Drive and Research Drive. Really, aren't those naming opportunities? Thank you. To conduct experiments in the lab, passing in front of the Pratt School where Melinda Gates was inventing MS-DOS or whatever, but where I was dominating both the hoops court and the lab. Oh yes, and the foosball table of Kappa Sig. Foosball? Kappa Sig. Are there any hoops fans out there? Any hoops fans out there? I'm still trying to be one. How about that big win, 68-63? I was in Sierra Leone the day Duke beat Wisconsin. And may be forgiven for believing that March Madness was a term recently invented to describe the stuttering decline of the Ebola epidemic. But that's the thing about cultural and experiential difference. You can always try to learn. So I read, for the first time, Sports Illustrated. It's easy for me to read journals like Clinical Infectious Disease or Medical Anthropology Quarterly, but the following was lost on me, and I quote, Winslow is only 6'6" and 225 pounds, but he uses his wingspan and his relentless energy to bother opposing power forwards. Only 6'6". What are power forwards? Progressive Power Rangers like the ones my son plays with? And how could a mere human have a wingspan that brought to mind, at least to my mind, species of bird? Albatross, cormorant, and ahinga. Hey, where are our bio and zoology majors? Any ornithologists? Very 19th century. Like the culture wars at Duke. Kudos to our honorary degree recipient, Dr. Harold Mooney, the plant man, and a Duke grad who shaped the field of modern ecology. Now stop Ebola. Another informed joke wasted on all of you. Ecology, forest, never mind. The last line in the SI paragraph, and no, Dean Andrews, SI does not mean sacroiliac. Where's Dean Andrews? The last line in the paragraph is the following, and I quote, Winslow shot 57.5 from the field and 53.6 from three. What does that mean? No clue. Sounds to me like case fatality rates in the current Ebola crisis. I saw the word stats. I love biostats. And read on. The stats persuaded Cook to shoot more off the catch than off the dribble. What? Quinn, where are you? Where are you? Help a brother out. What does that mean? Yes, I said, where are you, Quinn Cook? Mother of Quinn. Happy Mother's Day. Nolan Smith, we got to meet them yesterday and have our faith in humanity restored. Will you guys and your families forgive me for my colossal ignorance of basketball? Janet Hill already has. Since my undergraduate anatomy course, I thought the calves were the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. The great vessels, that is what we called them. On the other hand, not a single one of you champions knows how to dose even the most basic antibiotics. SI, Sports Illustrated, reminded me that we all think we live in different worlds. These are, as I learned at Duke, socially constructed. They tend to diverge over time. But in fact, we live in one world, not three. Message one is about the need for what they also used to refer to in the 19th century as fellow feeling. The parable of the Good Samaritan illustrates the point better than I will. But here comes the narrative, one I proffer with full apologies to my teachers and to the administration. You better be laughing. Unfortunately, it's true. Wade Stadium would be bad enough, what with Oprah and all. Get it? I'd have to follow Oprah. But Cameron would trigger far worse PTSD. Since the only time I went to a game, I stayed for less than half of it. Why, you wonder? I was that evening in the company of some of my fraternity brothers. I won't name names, but Dave and Mark were there. Brian was likely off accruing further brain damage on the football field. I'm sorry to say it, dear offspring of said brothers, but Lori and Sturley were likely present. I will say no more, but picture the scene. Within the fastness of Cameron, there was a great din, drums and horns and shouting. It looked innocently like Page Auditorium on the outside, but sounded like the mines of Moria on the inside. The crazies were picking on one player from the other team, the name of which escapes me. PTSD. But he was neither Tar Heel nor Cav. Soon I was hurling completely inappropriate epithets at a player who was, let's just say, of my own cultural background. If you've been attentive, you know I'm from rural Florida, and let's just say trailers were involved. My cosmopolitan daughter, the senior, who did in fact apply to Duke, once surveyed my hometown and said something along the lines of, so that explains it. Back to Cameron. I let forth a volley of orc-like jeers. The enemy, frazzled, looked up into the crowd and right into my eyes, letting me know he'd heard the taunt. And so I slipped out, almost sprinting, with shame and fear, and ran back to Science Drive before this gigantic version of my peeps, this pink Balrog, could beat me to a pulp. True story of behavior Coach K or Kevin would never condone, nor would Cook or Smith or any other true sportsman. This is not what James B. Duke had in mind when he left a fortune to Trinity College in order to carefully select students of character, determination, and application. Professors Burrian and Shaw, Dean Sue, I'm sorry. Don't tell Dr. Zhao, please. Don't tell my doctor journalist pal, John LaPook. Oh, wait, he's here. Let me say it before the divinity students do so. That's a yelp from a divine yelp. Crowd-driven behavior is often bad, and I knew it even as I joined in. Am I allowed to ask for a cheer or at least absolution from the divinity students? Point one, dear graduates, is that it's important to reject the notion, alas still fashionable, that we can't really understand the views of others or their suffering or dismay. The notion that each of us atomized can extend empathy or mercy or solidarity only to those most like us, this claim is both false and grotesque and undermines not only campus culture, about which we obsess over much, but also the real world's culture it reflects. Imagine what medicine or nursing would be like if we maintained that it's not possible to treat leukemia or empathize with a patient with leukemia unless we ourselves had endured it. You with me, Duke nurses? Allied health professionals? You're waving a lot over there, but not at me. We understand what someone being choked means when he says, "I can't breathe." We know why some more than others have good reason to be frightened of a fate that would include being choked or shot or flung around in the back of a van. We know why failing to rescue refugees on the high seas is a dereliction of duty. We know why some in West Africa have fled the formal medical system since it can't afford them proper medical care. And I'm sorry to darken your day by noting that while the mortality rate among Americans with Ebola is approximately 0, it has not budged in the course of a year below 69% across the region most affected. I've recently returned from one of these countries. Well, not that I've been there in the past 21 days, of course. Epidemiological humor gets a little echo. Our species gets into trouble any and every time we consider anyone to be less than human. True, there are times, like when looking at SI, by which Dean Nancy Andrews, I still don't mean sacroiliac. There are times when I wonder if someone with a 6'10" wingspan or someone who is vertically 6'11" might be superhuman. But it's the lack of empathy that leads to problems. And empathy can be cultivated, even among those whose worlds have diverged. Take my goddaughter and daughter. Both take after their dads, if not on the taunting front. But the similarities stop there. One grew up in a Boston suburb, the other in Paris and Rwanda and Haiti. The former is a die-hard sports fan, as she was when she weighed no more than Okafor's kneecap, or stood less tall than Mike Winslow's humerus. Come on, guys. Sports humor, I mean, that's a stretch for me. My daughter, in contrast, would know the French word for badger, but would likely associate the word with Winnie the Pooh or Lord of the Rings. Speaking of which, please note that one of our honorees, the great Renee Fleming, has many claims to opera fame. She does a badass Marriage of Figaro, but won our family's hearts by singing on the soundtrack to Lord of the Rings. And how about the great McCoy Tyner here with his son Dean and his grandson? Nerd music overlap is always possible, even when nerd sports dialogue founders. Message 2, get ready for some disappointments or some things not to work out as you expect. Let me wax nostalgic about my last year at Duke and about what happened afterwards. For some reason, I knew even in high school that I wanted to be a doctor. And I learned at Duke that I wanted to be a physician anthropologist. Thank you, Anthro Department. I even knew that I wanted to work in West Africa, and that was eons before Duke Engage. So I applied, rather confidently, for a Fulbright scholarship. The first 2 propositions worked out in short order, and thanks to my mentors here, within a couple of years of graduation, I was beginning an MD PhD program at Harvard. Thank you, Dr. Shaw and scattered anthro faculty, for all those letters of recommendation. Thank you, Hans Saucy, class of 1981, my daughter's godfather, who edited all my books, but not this speech. Hannah's father, however, edited it severely. Hey, any MD PhDs out here? Scattered piping. Again, birds come to mind. How about all those who received, as of today, a second degree of any sort? Joint degrees. Where are the 1,200 master's degree students hiding? The third proposition to go and work in West Africa took 30 years. I never set foot in either Liberia or Sierra Leone until 11 months ago, since I was turned down here at Duke for a Fulbright. I didn't even get an interview. But that led me to Haiti, which was the greatest thing since Duke that ever happened to me. I hope that all of you graduates, and especially those who aren't exactly sure what you'll be doing over the next few months, are open to serendipity and disappointments and to changing directions when circumstances call for it. Don't hang on to narrow notions of success or to the anxiety that too often accompanies them. Message 3, final message, is related to the first 2. Don't forget, as I sometimes did, how lucky we are. I'm not referring specifically to the merits of your alma mater, as Duke will be as soon as I shut up, but rather to things I took for granted when I made my first airplane flight to a place called Durham. That was to attend something called Project Wild, a hippie granola outward bound thingy in the Pisgah National Forest. I'd applied to it and was accepted, but my large family couldn't afford to pay for said project. Large, if not as large as France Cordova's, who probably turned to physics for a bit of dark matter respite. Working that last summer at Scotty's Lumber to save money, I'd all but given up on it when someone from Duke called and said, "That's okay, we have need-based scholarships for Project Wild." So my first 2 weeks on a need-based scholarship at Duke were spent in the wilderness of Western North Carolina, and some of the friends I made then are, of course, still my friends today, these 35 years later. Thank you, Paula Crown and Bruce Karsh and others for supporting need-based financial aid here at Duke. And the arts, so richly represented on this podium, not at this one. What is it? Not a podium, stand. You know what I mean. Where are you, art people? We're all art people. Now, what in the world is not need-based? Rather, what problems in our shared worlds, which include in this telling rural Florida, rural North Carolina, rural Haiti, cities and villages of West Africa, also downtown Durham and Boston and Baltimore and Ferguson, what problems are not soluble by coming together and applying even current knowledge, which is far from where we will go, to the sorts of problems I've alluded to here? And please note, I didn't go on about Ebola or AIDS or tuberculosis or earthquakes or hurricane. I've made that mistake in previous commencement addresses. But the true answer is none. None of these complex social problems is insoluble. I know this claim is true. With empathy and patience, need can be assessed, resources assembled, problems solved. Just as empathy can be cultivated, so too can knowledge be put in service to community. Take, as we just did, the examples of Rakesh Jain or the dynamic duo of Michael Feinberg and David Levin. It was my own need to attend a school like this one, even though my family couldn't afford to pay for it, that led me to Duke. And Duke led me to medicine and anthropology, which led me to Haiti and West Africa, if in the opposite order than intended, and also to Harvard, the day job again, Dick. This path was laid right here in this city, thanks to financial aid and other support, and to my parents, who both believed in the power and promise of higher education. And here's my chance to say, thanks, Mom. By the way, quite annoying that she ran a half marathon 2 months ago. Seriously. You can follow your dreams too if you take the time to interpret them now that you're here. But so many in this world are shut out of all dreaming by forces beyond their own control and beyond their parents' control. Let's name some of these forces: poverty and racism and gender inequality and armed conflict, a rising tide of economic disparities, and the sort of environmental degradation that leads to epidemics like Ebola. Where are you, Nicholas School? As any doctor knows, these are pathogenic forces in their own right. And here's where we need help, not only from our engineers. Will you go and fix this stuff already? But also from our MBAs and MMSs and others who can promote economic growth. All right, you guys at Fuqua are always cheering yourselves. We need you to promote economic growth with more inclusion and less destruction of this planet. We know you can. I needn't have worried so much about my misdemeanor to felony ratio. Above, I noted that I'd spent a lot of time in prison. Nobody even asked me about that. In Haiti, Peru, Siberia, and Rwanda, but this had always been as a physician and never as a convict. The situation is in some ways worse in this country. In this week's New Yorker, Jeffrey Toobin reports, and I quote, "a growing national sense that the criminal justice system has failed African Americans." I will add, as an infectious disease doctor, good that it's growing, the sense that we've failed, if less quickly than the size of our warehouse population. Our country has far and away the largest per capita prison population in the world. When and how did this come to pass? Well, I was halfway through my Duke experience. A series of ill-conceived policies led to what can only be called mass incarceration. Where are you, public policy wonks? Fix it. Doctors can't. This led, as elsewhere, to explosions of prison-seated epidemics, but also to a hardening and a lack of empathy and a failure of imagination. The latest explosion in Baltimore is tightly tied to these developments. Far too much talent in my generation and those that followed has already been squandered in prison or jail. Think for a moment of their mothers. That's why I'm proud to share the stage with the founders of KIP. The title of the book about them is the speech I plan to give in the event of inclement weather. Work hard, be nice. And here's my chance to say to Mr. Matt Cohn and 9 high school students, thank you for being here. Where are you at? Mr. Cohn has built an entire high school curriculum based on social justice. As for my daughter, I knew it would be a mistake for me to pressure her to go to Duke. The signs were not good when, a year ago, I tripped with her down memory lane, meaning from Wanamaker to Crowell Quad and back and forth along Science Drive. She was less reverent than I'd hoped about the Gross building or the other labs in which I toiled, and possibly disdainful of the computer sci building in which anthropology was once housed. So I outsourced that task to my goddaughter. Hannah had, as ever, a plan, and it involved simple but radical proposition of putting yourself in someone else's shoes. She and my daughters. I have a trump card, said Hannah. I'm taking her to one of my classes. This did not impress me as startlingly original. And I said as much on a call, thank you, dear trustees, and I said as much as on a call from Sierra Leone. But the class is Marxism and Society came the tart and devastatingly correct response. Back one last time to basketball and to Sports Illustrated, which does not feature heavily in the syllabus of that course. Marxism and Society, Sports Illustrated. And back to you, dear undergraduates. Come on, undergraduates. The epicenter not only of your mother's worlds, but of the universities, and your own, of course. So finally, who's about to get a BA today? A BS? A BSE? No? Dean, no, Chancellor Washington? Where are you? BSE does not mean bovine spongiform encephalitis. I did understand one part of that article in Sports Illustrated. Okafor's father, and I quote, of course, never having heard of Okafor before preparing for this speech. No offense. Okafor's father said he was not sure his son would choose Duke until 3 or 4 days before the announcement. End quote. Been there. But Hannah delivered, as did this place. My daughter will be coming here in August, a member of the class of 2019. I predict she will work hard and be nice. I know that she will be surrounded, as you have been, and as was I, by talent and creativity and drive. And I hope more than a little kindness, affection, forbearance, and empathy. Our beautiful and troubled planet, to which you will decamp tomorrow, needs these sentiments. Thank you all, class of 2015, for letting me be part of your commencement. Thank you.